Ladies and gentlemen, it is time. The Ratrig is finally coming out of its cage because we are going to implement some very much needed upgrades. We are going to increase flow, water cool the whole thing and do some general maintenance because we have deteriorating print quality on the Ratrig, unfortunately. Welcome! Grab a coffee. I'm afraid it's going to be a long video. First of all, I'm going to try to get the Ratrig out of its enclosure and on the table so we can look what is going wrong with the Ratrig. So this is going to be the heater. It has been living for quite a few months in the Ratrig. First glance, I'm not seeing anything that is going to be troublesome, but I'm going to know it for sure when I remove the heaters and look what's inside. And just like that, the Ratrig is out of its cage. We have released the rat. First of all, I want to see inside the heater if we actually have a melting problem or not. Some say that my heater is unsafe with the PTC element. I agree to disagree, so let's have a look, shall we? It looks like I'm going to eat my words. We have a little bit of a heat issue. The printed parts are starting to melt. This heater has probably over 100 hours of heat cycles in it. And yeah, the printed parts I am using, so this is the ABS GF from Radiator. Yeah, it is not enough to keep the heat into the core. We definitely need to use different filament. Well, this is a problem for later. That brings me to this part. We are going to disassemble the tool head, remove the belts, remove the back housing partially, and we are going to do a small rebuild. Not going to show you all. You have all seen the videos of the Ratrig, and if you didn't, there will be a link right over there. So, I see you when everything is disassembled. We have all the belts off, and the good news is everything is still super smooth. We don't feel any biting. So all the problems that we are seeing are not because of the linear rails. I'm going to clean them, re-grease them, but yeah, the tool head seems to be pretty much good to go. And here we have it, the tool head completely disassembled except for the beacon probe. We have the duct fan right over here. We still have the hot end in it, but I want to show you the following. So like I told you in my review, we have a deteriorating print quality of my input shapers and also the surface quality. The only thing I can say, this has been mostly done without Loctite. This is going to be the best advertisement for using Loctite. Yeah, this is my print head. Not only that, this was also as good as completely loose. Even the terminals for the heater were loose. Everything basically was starting to come loose. So I'm definitely going to make all my connections with a bit of blue Loctite because this is going to meet the problems I am facing right now. But before we do that, we need to remove all of this because we are going to replace the hot end with something different. We will be replacing the hot end with the Goliath water-cooled version, which is going to give us a nicely extended melt zone. This is going to replace the hot end that is in right now. And that hot end is from Fetus. It is going to be the Rapido hot end 2 with the melt zone extension nut. I removed all the bolts from the tool head. Now it's time to put on a good bead of Loctite 243, which is a normal strength adhesive. This is going to just hold in the bolt and you will be able to remove that bolt if you don't overdo it. We have the Goliath in, just barely. We have one problem. This connection port right over here is completely borked, useless, whatever you want to call it. The wire is nice and pretty. We also have the problem that the exhaust ports of the part cooling fan are way too high. So we are going to redesign everything from this part to this part so we can house this Goliath. To give you a little example, this is the melt zone of the Fetus and then we have the melt zone. It is absolutely massive. So some redesigning later, we can see the Goliath is in. We can also see we have some room to spare, not a lot, right over here. We have some space, so I think we are in the clear. We are not going to hit any prints, but I think we will see when we are going to try a real print. And I have redesigned the housing so these fittings are nice and neatly packaged. One thing I might change is this straight piece. I'm probably going to curl it in to give a little bit more room for the tubing, but I think there is a high chance I'm just going to plug the tubing in like that and route it like that with a zip tie to the back. Got my test setup, hot end, fan, connected, power supply. Let's give it a spin. I can definitely feel a good amount of air pressure. Now let me put some water underneath and let's look what the beam is going to be around the print. But it is feeling really good. Same setup, this time with water to see how the airflow is going. Consider me impressed. This is only my second print on the Ratrig. It's looking really promising. The beam is very focused. I like it. We got a good amount of airflow. We have almost perfect tolerance between the hot end and plastic parts. So I'm going to do a quick redesign. Probably not going to show you. And then we are going to skip a little bit forward till we get back to the assembly. The GD has been cooking this night because right here are going to be my final parts. This is going to be Radiator ABS glass filled or carbon. One of those both. But yeah, it's safe to say that GD still delivers amazing print quality. Look at this, guys. Wow. I used two of them because one of them is slightly different than the other one. And this is just me trying to figure out which one is going to fit my purpose the best. And the reason I'm using carbon or glass filled ABS is just to get back the stiffness, because if we are looking at the original part, this is nice and beefy, very strong, just printed by itself. And once I start looking at my own prints, it is starting to get a little bit more flimsy. It is less flimsy, and it also gives me a little bit more stiffness on the parts that really need it, because we have some parts that need to hold on a belt, so we need to apply some force on it, and I really wanted it to be a little bit more stiff than the regular ABS from Polymaker. The hot end is already sitting in here, everything is fitting nicely, so time to rebuild it, put in this part and see what we are getting out of it. I think this is it. This is looking really nice. We have a nice window to our couplings. We have our new fan duct, we have tested it, you have seen it, it is all working really nice. The only thing that concerns me is going to be the homing. But I have noticed we have a collision right over here. What I did was drop the lead screw. Right now it is clearing, but it has been very close. Like you can see right now, the cable can be squished between this frame and this part. From what I remember, it will do the homing first like that, and then it will come up and do something like this. So I think this right over here is going to be fine. I'm going to route it like this, so it's going to look like this. Now the only thing we can do is rebuild the complete tool head and do the testing. Final piece on the GD+4 is ready. Time to build the tool head. What you just witnessed was me stripping out the head of the bolt. It was too tight in this carbon fiber part and we stripped the head. No way to save it. We had to drill it out, unfortunately. Now I do have a spare bolt, found it in one of the drawers, so all is not lost. Great. Time to reprint that same part and finally do the rebuild. Little update time on the heated inserts. Ratrig is using low profile heated inserts. I don't have those, so I did the next best thing. I have grinded them down so they are nice and flat at the bottom. Same is going to be true for this one, grounded it down. These ones are also low profile because this tube is longer, it's not a problem, but these were a little bit of a pain. So I pushed through the bottom wall. It is all now nicely mangled together. So if you are planning to do this mod, make sure to buy some low profile inserts. Just for fun, I want to know how much weight we are going to add or save to this complete contraption. So first of all, let's start with the stock setup. We have our hot end fan, we need that. We have the Rapido one without the nozzle. We are going to do the same for the other one. Then we have this part. This is where the fan is getting mounted and where we clamp the belts. This is the stock one. And this is the stock fan cooling duct. We lost the heated insert right over here and we lost one right over here. Everything together we have 87 grams of filament, hot ends, materials, fans and all of that. Now, let's grab the hot end, the Goliath. We are already at 84 grams. Oof, not really good. Now we do have to trim a little bit of this. So if I enlighten it a little bit, yeah, so it will probably be around 70 grams. The new upgraded fan duct and the new shroud so we can clamp our belts. Let's lift this up a little bit because we are not using all the cable. We are around 100 grams. So we added about 20 grams, I would say. We're probably going to lose a little bit of acceleration, but hey, we are gaining a lot more flow with this. I'm not really surprised. This is a huge, massive chunk of copper. The Rapido is a lot lighter of a design, so yeah, I'm not surprised. 20 grams, don't think it's going to be a real problem. We will see in the acceleration figures if it actually is a problem or not. Enough with rambling, we have all the parts. Now we can finally build the Ratrig. Believe it or not, everything except for the part cooling fan is hooked up. We can finally boot it up, see what we are going to get. Are we going to get the temperature of the Goliath? We have to do some reconfig in the Red OS to enable this hot end so it is correct. Probably do some PID tuning and look if our belts are properly tensioned. I have to say, after some redesigning, I really like what I see. There's no way around this bump right over here. It is a little bit annoying, but they have to do it to make the connection to the wire. So yeah, we have to paddle with what we have. Putting this thing right here up front, it is not going to hit the front door of my closet. So I think this is going to be mostly fine. I did the gantry alignment, it is looking pretty good. So I guess it is time to boot it up and do the beacon calibrations. Okay, we boot it up, we have light. So this is already very promising. No faults, great. And we have an extruder temp of 24 degrees, which means the extruder that is on the hot end right now is reading like it should. All lights up, time to do some configurations and see if this thing actually moves. We have done the initial beacon calibration, we have nozzle detection, we did the Z-tailed calibration, so it looks like the beacon to nozzle system is working perfectly fine. Now we are going to do a PID tune on the hot end and see what we are going to do with that. I can see the thing already heating up, it is blistering quick. In a few seconds we reached already 100 degrees. This is a ludicrous amount of heating. I can also see some smoking, I hope it is just from the initial heating. If not, we are having a defective hot end. Fingers crossed. We are not going to try that again, but I do smell the wire that is going to heat up the complete nozzle. It smells a bit like your regular toaster, the one you put your bread in. It really smells like a toaster. I did some quick probing right over here. I have to say, this is stupid hot. Even just from heating the hot end, this part right here on top went over 40 degrees. So yeah, we really need to cool it down. I'm so glad I used water cooling because this block is absorbing so much heat. I hope we didn't burn the O-rings that are going to connect and seal with that block right over here. If so, I have some more O-rings, but yeah, this was not the best idea I had. Input shaping is done. We can actually see we improved a few things. We gained some acceleration even though we don't have the hybrid setup right now. We are going to install the water cooling loop, and for that we are going to need these things right over here. I was planning to use 6mm tubing in the print head. Unfortunately, 6mm couplings right over here is not going to fit. I tried it, they don't fit. So we had to order some spare parts. We got 4mm tubing and we got some adapter pieces that go from 4 to 6mm. So that means that we are going to get 4mm from the head to the back, and the back we are going to splice into a 6mm because that's not the only thing that we are going to water cool. I have made a little bit of a test setup because I am not sure this is completely leak proof. So this is hooked up, we have a tray underneath. Then right over here we have the water pump that we are going to use. We have our 6mm tubing, which is being reduced with these couplings. And right over here we have a power supply hooked up to the wires of the pump. I had to figure out what the polarity and all of that was, but we found it. So it is nice and full. Not gonna lie, I'm a little bit afraid because this is so jank. This is probably the most jank thing I have ever done. All right, only one way to figure out. By the way, the printer is plugged out. We don't have power to the printer. So the worst thing that can happen is water dripping into the hot end, which is not a biggie. All right. Let's push the button. It looks like we are a little bit hydro-locked on the pump. I can see water flowing in the hot end. Oh my god. We now definitely have water in the hot end. Definitely still a bunch of air in it. We now have actively a water cooling system that is pumping water to the print head that is sitting right over there. And for now, the print head is completely dry. I don't see any water or any drips, even when I move around these little tubes, which is a great test to see if we actually have a good seal or not. The tubing length right now is a little bit much. We are losing massive amounts of pressure because the tubing right here is so thin that the pump is having trouble to pump water through the head. We are going to see if that is going to be enough. PLA would be a great test. If not, what we can do, because we now have about, I would say, 30 to 40 centimeters of hose extra that we are not going to use. We are going to snip it off, right over here, shortening the pump line about not half, a little bit less than half. If that doesn't work, we are going to route the 6mm cables closer to the head, put the connection right over here, so we have very short runs to the print head. The Ratrig is booting up, meanwhile the pump is running. We can see we have 24 degrees, the rest we can just ignore. We are not pumping 800 liters a minute. No way with these tubes that we are running 800 liters a minute. Now, what is going to be interesting will be the 24 degrees, and what we can see right now is that we have actually a pretty decent flow. And the reason because we have a pretty decent flow is because we are now pumping more in the air, so the pump has to do less work to pump the same amount of water. Alright, I have added another probe right over here. This probe is touching the screws that are connecting to the heat block. Right now we can see a smooth temperature of 29 degrees. The first time I have tried this setup without the water cooling, I could read over 50 degrees Celsius, and right now we can already see we are a lot lower. Of course, we are only pushing 200 degrees Celsius through this hot end, so we are still going to see what is going to happen if we bump it up. A little status update. The temperature of the hot end is staying the same, and right over here we can see we jump to 26 degrees. So let's try to bump it up again. Status report. The hot end is still smoking. We increased the temperature of the hot end with a few degrees, and the water actually got to 27 degrees Celsius. So the water is getting a little bit hotter. The hot end is getting a little bit hotter and smoking. The Goliath is finally ready for action. We have one more problem we need to tackle, which is going to be overheating steppers. So before, this closet was kinda against the wall, but not. It got so hot with the internal heating and just recirculating the same hot air, my stepper started to overheat and even lost 2 full prints because they were overheating. There is no recovery on the Ratrig for some reason. You can add it in code, but that's another story. So in order to tackle that, I have designed a water block because we were water cooling anyway, so why wouldn't I water cool these steppers, right? This is going to be the prototype water block. This has been printed with Jamghe PLA with some carbon fiber in it. Really cool stuff to do some prototyping with. If you want them, the links will be down below. It consists out of a top block. This will be made out of acrylic, but it is looking like this. Then we have our intricate design. I didn't clean it up, but there are some nice channels in there. O-ring, we have some blocks. The channels are running into these blocks. Then we have the frame, and then we need some standoffs. The GD+4 is printing them. So I reached out to PCBWAY, which is going to be the sponsor for today's video, who were so kind to mail me all the blocks and ship them to me. A first look of all these parts, super well packaged. The machining seems to be top notch. So if you have any crazy prototyping ideas, PCBWAY can be your partner. PCBWAY has a super great tool online. You upload your file, you select what service you want. They have FDM printing, CNC, PCB making, and much more. You select the material type. For my instance, I have copper and acrylic. You select your surface and you will get the quote, and if you agree with the quote, you press the buy button, and then you can follow along what the production process is, which was actually pretty interesting. I could see when they were stocking up on the materials, when they were milling it, they were doing QC and all of that. So yeah, you get updates all along the way. And I think this took around 2 weeks from ordering the parts to arriving at my home. So thank you PCBWAY for sponsoring today's video so I can make unnecessary and overbuilt prototypes. If you want to use their service, all the links will be down below. Let's take a close look at the parts they have actually shipped me. Now for the unpacking of the copper blocks, I'm actually going to use some gloves because copper will attract greases. And when your finger greases are on there, it is going to be very hard to clean them. So let's glove up. This is going to be the acrylic top lid. Oh my god, it is super transparent. Even the sides, it is looking like $1,000,000. Super happy with the surface finish. Now let's hope it is going to fit my prototype. And here we have it. The copper block. I have to say it is pretty hefty. The weight of this thing is absolutely, yeah, it is substantial is probably the way they would call it. Let's put it on a scale. Let's activate the scale. The scale is zeroed out. We are dealing with 224 grams of raw copper. Look at this. Right over here we can see the mill marks. So this is going to be a flat stock. And then right over here we can see all the parts they had to do to mill it out to get those little features I really wanted. And the inside also, you can see those little water channels I made that just divot in. It is not going to be the best design to cool it down, but I think steppers could be cooled with a wet fart, so this is probably going to do just fine. Alright, I'm going to degrease it, try to mount it. We also made a slot right over here. This will be for my O-ring, which is also going to be very interesting to see if it's going to work. Alright, we got some super glue. We have our O-rings. Now it's time to cut it at length and then try to connect it with super glue. This was recommended by AI, so if this doesn't work, AI, you are a lying piece of. So this should be my O-ring. Now it's time to glue it up and then do a water test. This is going to be the test setup. The water block, the pump, completely connected in a loop. Now, I'm super nervous. If there's going to be a leak, it's probably coming from this side because this is where the seam is. We definitely got a nice flow through the block. I can see some bleeding from this edge to the seal. The seal is catching everything right now. So this is going to be very interesting to see if this is going to stay that way. I'm going to leave it run for a few hours and then we are going to see if we will be greeted with disappointment or not. Two observations. This block is bone dry, this water is getting hot. The pump itself is giving out heat, it is heating up the reservoir and we are now at a toasty 32 degrees Celsius of water. But right now this is completely dry, so consider me very happy. We open up the back panel, we can see this is going to be the main board housing these steppers, and like you can see, this is one of those little fins that fell off. This is completely my fault. This was from prototyping, removing blocks, thinking that the glue would be good enough to use it a second time. Well, it isn't. So I cleaned up the steppers and now we are going to mount the block for the first time and see if it actually is all fitting and lining up pretty nice. But before we can mount this beautiful copper block, we will need to remove a few of these bolts so we can mount this water block to this plate. As you can see, we have made a bunch of holes. These are lining up with the 3D print. A few of these bolts need to be longer so we can fasten a knot on the underside, so this frame is nice and sturdy on the copper block. Then we obviously have our mounting point right over here. We have one over here to mount to the octopus board, and this is going to be for our triangulation. So yeah, let's remove a few of these bolts, prepare this whole block and do a little dry fit. We have mounted some bolts and nuts and we can see the standoffs. These are going to be barely touching the stepper drivers. I think I have about a 0.5 millimeter of play, and for that we need some thermal paste, which is going to be from Thermal Grizzly. This is going to be TG Putty Pro from Thermal Grizzly. I have used their thermal paste on my PCs. I have to say they provide some very good stuff and I'm really interested in this stuff. This is especially made for the bigger tolerance fits, so this will fit real nice between these steppers and my copper blocks. So this is the Pro version, which means that this paste has the best thermal conductivity of the whole lineup. So the next thing, we are going to drill a hole. Probably right over here, because we need a hole to put our tubing through, because right now this hole is the only hole that is going to be capable of feeding a tube through. The reason because is we have a bunch of belts right over here. These belts are in the way. We cannot use the bottom holes to get over top and to go through this umbilical cords to these connectors. Like you can see, I have shortened them. I was thinking that the shorter they are, the less resistance these tubing will give, because these are in series with the other block. And I think we were already moving quite a lot of flow just because of this all extra length. So this will all be 6 millimeters, which will be connected right over here. But now we need to drill a hole so we can fit our tubing through. Okay, so we are super close, and I'm sorry for the noise. It is absolutely pouring outside. This poor little fella, you're staying inside. So here's going to be the test setup. We have our pump right over here. We have the block completely connected. Right now there is no paste on that block. This is just a dry test. The printer will not be running, but everything is hooked up. Some paper towel just to make sure. This right here fits really well, coming right out there, and then following along the rest of the umbilical cord going to the print head. We already showed the print head not leaking, so I'm going to trust this not to be leaking. Maybe wrap some paper towel just to be sure. Then we are going to fire up the pump, and then we know if we actually have an almost finished project. We still have to integrate that sucker right over there. That's the radiator and the fan that we are going to use, but still, this is a very big milestone. If this is going to work, I'm going to be very happy. Okay, some paper towel right over here, just to be sure we don't make anything really important wet, because right now I don't really want to exchange any components. Fingers crossed, brothers and sisters, here we go. We see the block flowing, no leak so far. we definitely have some trapped air, so we are going to purge it a few times. And there we have it. We have water flow. Oh my god! We got flow in this puppy. Right now, it looks like it is not leaking. So I'm going to let this test run for quite a few minutes, and then I will circle back if I have good news when we have go time for the next part. This little trickle you can see is pure victory. Now it's time for the final step, which is going to be our radiator and fan combination. So if you're thinking the janky part about this build is done, you are totally wrong, because we need to install this right over here. This is the prototype radiator. So inside this little box we have a Noctua fan, which is going to be bolted onto a 120mm radiator. Now, looking at the little trinkle we have from the pump power, we could probably do with a fourth of this radiator, but oh well, we bought it anyway, so I'm going to use it. Now the problem is, we need to redesign the complete back housing of the Ratrig, which means the metal plate that is going to cover the box is no longer going to be needed for the things we are going to do, because this is going to be the back housing lid. Because the only thing we need to do is make this a little bit larger so we can mount our water pump, mount it to the back of the enclosure so we can finish off this build. So like you can see, we are going to first apply some thermal grizzly putty onto the steppers because we actively need to cool them. Right now they are not even touching, so that will mean that next print we are going to do will 100% fail because it's not getting cooled by anything. Now the cool thing about thermal grizzly's putty that it is thermally conductive but not electrically. So if we are going to touch any of the pins of the stepper, it is not going to be a massive issue. So it's a really safe way to apply some kind of a thermal paste on a unit that maybe has some electricity or shunts or resistors in the neighborhood. So first of all, I'm going to degrease the surfaces that are going to be in contact with the thermal putty, so just that we got all the grease out of it and we get the best thermal conduction. Now let's look what's in the box of this thermal grizzly. We have a complete assortment of spatulas, and then right over here, this is actually so much smaller than I thought. Wow! But they at least do deliver these gloves, which I'm going to use actually. These ones are boring. Alright, we already look way more professional. So, let's open up this little top. I have to say, it is quite a stiff paste. We don't need a whole lot on these blocks, so I'm going to try and gently put some on it, like that. That's going to be at all the sides that make contact with steppers, except for this one, so I remove the paste, are having a nice bead of this thermal grizzly putty. I'm expecting a lot of blowout on the sides, but that is just fine. Let's mount this beautiful water block for the last time. Oh yeah, I can already feel it making contact with the paste. It is feeling nice and squishy. But before I fully tighten it, let's install all the things so we don't over squish it, because that's the last thing we want. Oh yeah, look at that, all the squish in the world. There we have it. This is the finished silk PLA print. The bottom rings right over here are printed at 31mm cubed. These are more at 25mm cubed. This is already super crazy. We can also see that if the nozzle takes too long, it is boiling off the PLA. We were printing this at 230 degrees Celsius. For prints like this, we'd probably have to drop the temperature, which is the first. This is Conjure PLA silk. And normally I print it at 230, 240 on other printers with a hardened nozzle. This time at 230 we can already see we are boiling hot. Right here the overhangs are looking very terrible, even though that the airflow of that is massive. There's definitely some tweaking to do on PLA. Now luckily we are not PLA junkies, we are ABS junkies.
Today we are
going to try PLA CF from the brand Polymaker, who sponsored this filament. The fan is definitely working. What a racket this machine is making. But look at this, 330mm a second, 40mm cubed out of this hot end. This is absolutely nuts. We are running a 0.6 hardened tip nozzle, running Polymaker PLA CF. This is just amazing. Now, Fortunately or unfortunately, the fan is working again. It is making an absolute racket to keep everything cool, but I freaking love it. Alright, the Ratrig just finished the last print. This is going to be the radiator and fan housing. It is looking like $1,000,000. The only thing, and this is what we are going to see in the rest of the prints, is my top surface is really rough. So we are printing the PLA at 230 degrees. We are running a flow of 40 to 45 millimeters cubed. So we are really hammering this system. It seems all to work pretty fine. 230 is probably a little bit too hot, I'm afraid. So yeah, if you're going to do top layers, we or have to slow down, which in this case isn't working, or we have to lower the temperatures and slow everything down, which we are not going to do. So the next time I'm going to reprint that model, we are just going to hammer that top layer with more decent speed, so we have the chance of not overflowing the top layer. Same for this one. This is also looking absolutely amazing. Printed also at 40 millimeters cubed. This one, we also have the same problem. We can see some over extrusion. The bottom side is looking absolutely perfect. Then the last one we did was going to be this back housing. Now the bottom surface, like all the other ones, is looking absolutely perfect. The only problem is going to be this side right over here. So I did a little bit of a sanding because it was really rough. It's now looking way better. Unfortunately for me, this is going to be the back side and this is going to be the end side. So yeah, maybe I'm going to reprint it later. But right now, this might be a very good prototype to test everything out. The back housing is on. I have to say, this right here is probably the most janky thing about this whole project. It is just holding on with 4 tiny entry bolts. So if this is coming loose, this will be a major disaster. So what I'm probably going to do is put on some oh shit strapping, probably with some zip ties, because yeah, if this is coming down, it will come down hard, because this is not a light setup. Now, nonetheless, it is working. It's time to fill it up. We have a view window right over here. I removed the side panel and we can see if we have leaks, reason to panic and do some coding, because we have some PWM function on this one, and probably this one also will need to be configured in order to make it work. Now in the beginning everything will turn around, so that is not going to be a problem. The biggest problem is going to be the configuration and making that we have the correct ports on the BTT Octopus. So first of all, we need to fill it up with some green goodness, start it up and see what we did wrong and if there is some sadness leaking right here at the bottom. All right, enough rambling, time to fill her up for the last time. And we are going to use Corsair XL5 performance coolant in the green color, because that is going to fit the Ratrig. All right, let's give it a quick stir. Ooh, I like the green. It is looking like a UV kind of a green. Yeah, I dig this. I'm going to leave it at that. We're going to boot it up and we're going to see it drop and hopefully fill up the tubes. Now, normally we would do some kind of a beauty shot of the loop filling up. Well, if I'm going to do it at the back, you won't see it. If I'm going to fill up the block right over there, you won't see it. So I'm going to put you on the front, on the tool head, and I'm going to make it run so you can see all the green goodness going through the tubing to the tool head. So I think this is going to be a good enough beauty shot. Time to boot the system up for the first time. This is terribly disappointing. The print came loose, we lost the belt, and we have a massive blob of death. Holy fucking shit. I just got this 1 day ago. Yeah, with this terrible disappointment, I will have to end this video unfortunately, because I don't have any more time to work on this printer, because we are leaving for some holiday time. Then we are looking at the GD box, and then we are going to continue with this one. We have something cool coming up. We just got notice of a shipment, and I'm really happy with what we are going to receive. Now, all things are pretty much fine. I have removed the blob of doom. The only thing we will have to do is rebuild the housing, the belt clamping part. But for that, we are going to use a new tool that will be arriving in the shop very soon. If you are enjoying yourself with this video, the next video will be equally as enjoyable, I hope. If you're not subscribed, make sure that you are. Big thanks to all the members of the channel for supporting all the work that I do. Leave a comment down below. What do you think about the Ratrig V-core for water cool and all of that? Yes, I know it is completely unnecessary, but I love it so much, the water cooling. So yeah, that's gonna be it. Thank you so much for watching, and guys, I'll see you in the next one.